Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg, Evan Yoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World. So this week we're doing it a little different. I'm making sure I have stuff up here. And we're just gonna do we've gotten into discussing, what we're gonna talk about beforehand or whatever.
Right.
And we are so entrenched in other things right now. The vision board course, the Wonder Vision Board course. We're just like, well, my mind is all in there right now. So, or my focus, my consciousness right in there. So let's just sort of play it by ear. But it was interesting. I was thinking about it this morning, getting ready to come on here. And one of the things I was feeling about, hey, Yasmin, hi, Nicole. Good to see you guys here. So I was feeling into that and I was like, one of the things that keep on hitting me, sometimes almost literally, right, is
Right.
we keep on talking about wanting to move forward, and yet we do everything we can to not move forward.
Right. Or we, yeah. Yeah, we allow, it's like we've got a tether in the past or a tether to certain emotions and feelings. And, we allow it to stretch just so far and then it drags us back.
Yeah. And so I found that, doing this whole vision board thing for me has been a little more daunting than I thought it was going to be.
Well, absolutely. I would have to agree. But, at the same time, it's like, wow, I didn't even know that stuff was there.
Right. Which is the purpose of doing this course, because it is really like 4 courses in one, because it's a clearing course. It's a course in shifting, consciousness. It's a course on conscious creation.
Right.
All right. So it's 3. That's 3. I think that's enough. So, in looking at things and really taking, okay. So, we've talked about this a lot this year, is how much has crumbled in realities for us individually, for the collective. And when I sat with that, because looking at what I've created, right, one of the exercises we have in the course is looking at what we have created and then looking at our 7 essences around that, right, the worthiness, the trust, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
When I really looked in the mirror on some of the things, and I was surprised at where I scored low in terms of those 7 essences, right?
Me as well.
I realized that I have stripped away so much in so many levels that I don't know who I am anymore.
or what you really want.
Right. Or what the heart, the passion, like what that really is. And the more I sat with it, the more I was like, oh no, I'm looking at this. And no, that's because of that. No, I wanted this because of this. And it's like, well, then what do I want to create?
Right. Which I went through that exercise many iterations and ended up coming up with statements like, I want a heart-centered life. I want to, so it's
right.
Not this car, this dress, this house, this, it's not this amount in the bank. It's no, I want to live from my heart.
Right. And then you go, well, what does that look like? And it's like, I really don't know.
And I don't know because I never have.
Right. And that I thought was a great topic to discuss, because there's so much resistance. And, I found that many who start, well, all of us, I don't want to say many, all of us, we have starts and stops all along the journey, because it's almost like, how much can you take at once? And then you have to get off the roller coaster and take a breather, right? And just and say, okay, time out, right?
Well, and it's like, I need to now come into who I am now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need, I
And
need
really
a minute.
right. Waiting on that. Yeah. So, and it's weird and daunting to the ego, because when we get to that bare space, then the ego goes, so what you're telling me is all this was a lie? You're telling me that all this that we created as an identity was really not true? And that just creates waves of emotion from the ego, right? So it's not bad. It's something we're gonna do inevitably, right? So I feel like that's what we're getting to collectively right now,
Right.
because that's where I see a lot of people and hear a lot of people talking about weird physical stuff coming up that has like no basis in like, medical textbooks or whatever.
Right.
There's like odd life situations that are throwing you for a loop. And here we are only the second week into the year, but yet I still feel like we're closing out an old phase, and really the new phase isn't going to start for a couple more weeks, or as long as we choose for it to take.
Right.
So what I have found in the past year collectively is that, I was thinking about this. I'm like, well, how do I talk about this without sounding judgmental about it? Because I'm not, because I'm just trying to look at it, right?
Right.
We collectively don't really want to change.
Absolutely.
We say we do. We put
Right.
up a whole big stink about it. We create a lot of drama and fanfare and, just
Distraction with it.
yeah.
What this period of time reminds me of is, you remember in the book, The Afterlife of Billy Fingers,
Mhm.
and she conveys that if you believe that there's this heaven, and that there are angels and harps and you sit on clouds, or there's this hell and it's this punishment, that's what you will create for yourself in the immediate afterlife.
Mhm.
And I feel like we're in that space right now where we're going to sit and look at all that we've created, and we're going to review it, and we're going to say, okay, I believe that this is where we are, and I've got to review all this, and I've got to make decisions about it, or I'm just going to be here.
And we fight tooth and nail against I'm just going to be here, right?
Well, on the one hand, and on the other hand, but it's comfortable.
Well, that's true.
And
Oh, that's true. All right. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like my mother used to say, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know.
Well, and that's where the lack of really wanting to change comes from, right? Because really, ultimately, see, I was thinking of what you're saying from a different perspective of, do we want to sit and judge what we've done in the past, or do we want to just be here present, which is a shift into a presence versus
True.
reviewing all the drama again. So it all depends on how you take what you were saying.
Well, and I mean, it can be, both are true.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I have found that, looking at my business, looking at what we do, looking at what I do, right? And really looking at, okay, 10 years since, a lot of stuff, 10 years since I taught the first Trinity Energy Progression class, right?
Right.
10 years last week. So 10 years since I started that practice, 11 years since I started doing this professionally, and all this kind of stuff, and going, okay, well, what I look at is, in the experience of the thousands of people that I've worked with and talked to and everything else over the past decade, it's been a vast majority of us want to go partial way in terms of change,
Right.
until we get to the real dark, deep crevices, and then we just don't want to go there. Right. Then we get angry, we get triggered, we get bored, or oh, I just don't want to do that, or that doesn't resonate with me anymore, or that just gets me irritated, and I'm tired of getting irritated. I'm irritated at getting irritated. I'm irritated at getting triggered. Like this has been coming up in this exponential fashion for the past year, of the exponential, like, triggers of looking at, because all those cracks and crevices are opening up to be looked at, right? And so
Right.
so many like are shrinking, so many of us are shrinking away from it. And it's like, well, then you gotta look at it at the collective level, because that's then a collective thing that we have. We're still addicted to the avoidance. We're addicted to the,
To where we are.
yeah, to the story of it. That's my 5 cents for today.
Well, and there seems to be, I know in looking at the things that I, because in the course we talk about the past creations, and you get wrapped up in what I've done and judging it and coming to a different place with it. And I keep finding that there's certain things that I feel are inevitable to move forward with me. And it's like, but I know it doesn't have to be. So why am I choosing to bring them forward with me? Is it, what kind of attachment is that? Is that, is that fear-based, that like, if I forget about that, then I might recreate it again? Or is it that I don't ever want to experience that again? And so if I stay in that place of fear, I don't. But if I stay in that place of fear, I just could perpetually recreate it and bring it forward with me. So I've been looking a lot at that, and that choice of, why am I choosing to bring it forward with me? And then, that makes me want to jump right into, okay, well, there's a part of me that really liked it.
Right.
Which
Right.
gets into the shadow. And it's like, oh, okay, so I really enjoyed that depth of emotion. I really enjoyed that uncertainty, that level of uncertainty.
Well, on top of the fact that we don't like calling ourselves out. We don't like calling ourselves out. We don't like calling the ego out. And
and even if you do, to a certain point, say, yeah, I created that, but then you just slide right into that victimhood and go,
oh yeah,
but I don't know what else to do. So that's still not taking that full responsibility.
Right. And when you go, nope, I do, because I still created it. Like, and that's where I've hit this total brick wall of like irritation, because it's like, not happy with that, except I created it.
Like,
no.
I am.
No, well, like, but you don't know how why that's like that. You don't know why that didn't work out. You don't know, but I created it. So then why did I create it? And then the ego's like, shut up.
It's like, well, isn't there something else we can talk about? Isn't there something else more important to look at?
Like, write it off already and just say you can't do anything about that. And then it's just like, well, but then I don't know what to do about it. Right. So this is really deep diving into the self-consciousness.
It is. It is.
And it's, I think it even connects into what Michael had posted, because we had posted on the board yesterday, like, what do you guys want to talk about? Because, we're just going to throw it out there. We could literally, we're just like, I don't know. We're just so entrenched in this other stuff. But, the question, it just is, there's no judgment on it. It's just, why are we so stuck in this denial of ourselves? How do we change that? And, I've realized in looking at that review of the past, right, in the last 10 years is, well, it's been my dedication, right? My dedication has been to see myself, right? To really see myself,
right?
To really come to a place of self-love and acceptance, right? That's been A, expanded consciousness. B has been helping others to do the same. So I was looking at that and going, okay, well, according to how I judge it, right, I feel like I've failed at that.
Right.
And then I look at that and say, and you know, and I'm not looking for any comments or whatever, because I say that and people are like, oh, well, yeah, you know how much you've done and whatever. It's like, no. This is how I perceive it, right?
Right, right.
And it's like, I feel like I failed at that. I feel like, you know, it's only come, but then when I say that to myself, this is where I call myself out on it is, well, then you've obviously failed to do it to yourself because everything around you is a reflection of what's inside of you, right? Which then makes the ego have a temper tantrum and want to shut
Right.
down.
Right.
So
One of the things I've noticed is that, and this is a bizarre analogy, but it's the way my mind worked is, you know, when you want to recreate something like with a mold, and you stick your hand in something and you create the mold, and then you pull it out and you pour the stuff that hardens in it, and then okay, so then when you're unleashing that, you turn the mold inside out and it's not recognizable, but yet it's what created what you were after. And I feel like I'm looking at that mold turned inside out going, that just doesn't look like I thought it would.
right, exactly.
And I'm sitting there saying, okay, maybe if I look at it from that perspective as in not so identifying it to that, what I created, but what I used to create that, it almost, it divorces it to the point where I can look at what I did that created that.
Right.
And that seems to be more like bite-sized pieces for me to look at, to try to unravel that.
And so the reason I think I felt like it was important to talk about this is because this is what we go through in terms of our own self-development. I'm looking for the comment that Michael put in because he's not here right now, I don't think.
I don't think he is either. Well, did he say hidden? Did he use the word hidden?
Well, it was essentially creating an allowance for the conscious mind to be at ease with the unknown, right? Would love to have a discussion of inclusion of the unknown variables into manifestation creation. I'll see, I'm reading it differently today than I did last night. Essentially creating an allowance for the conscious mind to be at ease with the unknown, which is that whole creating out of context that we've been talking about, right? But I feel like it's connected because it takes us having to really let go of these judgments, right? Really. Because, you know, what I started looking at this weekend is, well, what if I just did something completely different with life? And I sat with that. Right. Because then the ego goes, well, what else would you do? Right? What else would we do? And well, what kind of a loser are you to just do that? Like, it was like all those kind of judgments, right? And it's like, well, what if I just sat in presence and allowed the door to open, even if I have no idea what that looks like literally no idea.
Right.
And then there's 1,000 questions that comes up with that. Well, that's what Michael's asking about, is that whole conscious, the creation without context, right? To say, I'm committed to living in passion from the heart, right? I'm committed to living my passion from expanded consciousness. And I have no idea what that really looks like.
Right, which means you can't bring any of your attachments along.
Right.
So
or you have to be open, or you have to be open and allowing to any of them falling away. Right. Or all of them. Maybe all of them, maybe some of them. Maybe it just changes direction or changes focus. Maybe it's a complete about face and it changes your entire life. And I know people who have just upped and left and moved to a different part of the world.
Right, right. Abandon everything, perceived abandonment of everything that they previously had created.
Yeah. And that's where it's.
Even if it's a family.
Right. Even if it's a family. And a business and a whatever, you know, And I've seen it happen a lot over the last 10 years, more and more. But there are actually a select few out of most, because most of us say, I can't leave this. I have to hold on to this. I have to have this. I have to stay in my marriage, my relationship. I have to stay in my house. Like, how would I let go of this instead of the guidance just saying, go and do this? You know,
You know what I keep thinking I don't know where I'm coming up with all these today, but what was the story? Gosh, the guy that grew really big and fell asleep, and they tied him down. Gosh, what was the name of that?
I don't
It
know.
was a kid. It was a kid's story.
Oh, 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 yeah. There's that. That just struck a vague memory.
Right. And I mean, but that's what I see we have done is we've fallen asleep with what we have. And as we're trying to wake up, we've got all these tethers saying, no, stay right where you are. Stay
Yes.
right where you are. And it's allowing ourselves to pull away from those tethers and those
Yeah.
ties.
So that is what the beginning of this vision board course has just created and looking at, because it's taking a hard look at that. And it's not, well, I don't want to say hard look. It's taking an honest look at it.
Right. And it's not like, oh, let me quick check in the box 10 minutes. This is, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, it is awesome. It's just daunting at first, in many cases, to the ego. So here's the thing, we and I and both of us and have gotten comments about, oh, well, this is just too intense. This is too, too much work. It's too many triggers and whatever. And it's like, yeah, what we committed to was the fast lane of, let's just shift all this stuff and get past it. Right.
Right.
Let's get to a different vibration of existing. And that's really what we have created in the whole Wonderland program, because it was taking the Trinity energy progression, like sort of foundations of understanding there, and making them practical, right? This is how you use it, because I would have all these questions over the years of, well, I don't know how to incorporate it into my everyday life, right? I don't know how to I don't remember how to change this or do this using this understanding and remembrance, right? And so that's what we're doing. That's the practical application of what Wonderland, what Ascended World's all about, is living in a different way from those foundations of understanding, which is a very highly accelerated rate of change to get to that vibration. And yes, is it bumpy and uncomfortable to the ego? Oh yeah, because it's really cutting a lot of those tethers really quickly, but also opening the ground for creation in a completely different way. And so we just
And a
don't really,
different foundation,
yeah,
a different basis from where we're creating. And I think that's what, it's that question of, okay, we've been creating this way and now we're going to create this way, so that it has to shift. The scale has to shift to, oh, I can now easily create this way versus the way I've been doing it, and coming to that comfort level. And
right. And
it's a process.
It is. Well, because where do we start? We start with, oh, I should meditate more.
Right.
And it's funny because I've had people, like they'll stop and be like, well, why don't you teach them meditation classes and whatever? And I feel like, well, that's like going from, like teaching PhD level stuff back to kindergarten, and it's not judgment wise, but it's like really challenging when you're immersed in one thing to go all the way back to that. Right. Which it's not bad. And it's a good reminder, right? But it's not a place I want to stay. It's not something someplace I want to keep back there. Right. So, we start with, oh, I should meditate more. Oh, I should take care of myself more. Right. Oh, I should, okay, I learned this method of energy healing. You want to call it Reiki or
Shamanism.
or whatever, bars or matrix energetics, or, like there's 1,000 of them, right?
Right.
Or Trinity energy progression. I'm doing this so that I can learn how to stop my headaches, to be more relaxed, to fix some physical things. That's where we start usually.
Let go of the symptoms.
Let go of the symptoms.
Right.
But really, what has come to me in reviewing this for myself in the past week, which has been like the big monster, like understanding that I'm like, oh, how do I even finish doing this course if I can't get past this first section? But it's like, well, that's what Trinity really was the fast track to just a different level of creation altogether. But
Right.
to get there in the step is letting go of thousands of levels of limitations and
Beliefs.
and whatever. And it's like, so it's not, and I'm like saying there's no judgment there. This was literally an observation of me just like looking at, and most are still at the I should meditate more. Many, not most, many are still at the I should meditate more, or I can't even take care of myself. I
Right.
can't even nourish myself. How do I start doing that? So then to jump right into another foundation, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it tends to be not the most common, most popular choice. Because I'd rather just get an app on meditation and that will make me feel better about myself.
Right. And I can be successful at that.
Yeah.
Or
right.
believe that I'm successful with
Right.
that.
Right. Because honestly, like I said, all I could think of this whole weekend was how much of a failure I felt like, right, at what my
Yep.
crusade has been. And I realized really not the case in the first part, right? The case in the first part was to commit to me.
Right. Right. And I think that is where it falls into that trap of we've been trained to believe that is not valuable.
Right.
Helping yourself first is not valuable. Putting
Right.
yourself first is not valuable. It's very selfish. It's very, very antisocial. But actually that is helping the collective. That is healing the world, is healing yourself.
Right. But what you just said just struck such a chord, because that's the truth of it. I mean, and if that's what reflects back to me by others, right, then I believe it's not valuable. Oh, that just really struck a chord.
That's what I've been looking at. Being a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, all those roles that I've filled, all were about my relationship to others, not my relationship to myself. And I've spent a lot of time in this whole process of the course of looking at my relationship with myself and why I haven't valued that.
Yeah.
And why because, you hear the phrases, the best revenge is to live a good life.
Yeah.
And, whether it's revenge, whether it's, one-upmanship, whether it's whatever, it's all about living for yourself, so that then that can overflow, that can well up. And then that's when you help others. And if you never allow yourself to get to that point, how can you ever help others?
Right. Yeah. Well, that really hits me this morning. So, well, and that's the whole, at some level, I obviously don't believe that it is valuable, because that's been my crusade. And I feel like that it hasn't reflected back to me in the value I believe that it holds. Right. Or I thought I believed it holds. Yeah. So interesting. And that's how the collective works for us, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. I, back when it was on regular TV, I enjoyed the show Castle. I don't know if you've ever watched
yeah, I
it.
used to watch Castle. Yeah.
So I found on our regular TV that they had it streaming. And so I watched a few episodes, and I sat there and I watched how he had no limitations. And he participated in what he enjoyed, and he lived he shared, he lived, he could focus on only what he wanted because he didn't have that distraction of, I have a job or I have this. Now, granted, several episodes they did weave that in, unfortunately, but it's like, that's what I'd like to create for myself.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that level of freedom and that level of connection to what, allow myself to connect to what turns me on, what gives me that passion, what brings me to that place of, not only does it just fill me up, but then I allow it to fill those around me up.
Mhm. Well, and I allow others to fill themselves up around me in ways that don't necessarily have to be with me.
Because because I have no agenda with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And to get over that step is to really dig into that whole understanding that is really the core. And and the funny thing is we've been talking about it, and I've been talking about it, and we've been talking about it forever, for years, right? It is all about me, just like
Right.
it's all about you in your reality, right?
Right.
And yet we find so much shame in that to say it.
Well, and almost feel defensive about it because there's so many that's like, why does this always have to come around? Why is this always about you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And then you feel like, and then what does the ego say? Oh, that was enough about me. That was enough. That was enough of, doing things for me.
Right.
And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Wow. Yeah, that does really. Sometimes sometimes that's how it works out. This is how the whole process of consciousness works out, is we are in such habits of stuff. We're so blind to things right in front of us. That's why we put them in front of us again and again and again and again and
And
again.
why we feel that the next time we create it, it has to be louder because that level of attention didn't get your attention.
Obviously, I didn't pay attention there, so I got to do it here.
So I'm going to make this louder for me, and I'm going to make it more impactful. And then, and again, and it has to hit that tender underbelly more as we don't hear it.
Right. Yeah, that feels, honestly, it's the first good thing that has felt good. That's the first thing that's felt good all weekend. Although my meditations have been good. It was just them coming back. And then I just had terrible dreams last night. And I'm like, wow. So I was hitting myself upside the head with it over and over again. But that makes so much sense. So much sense.
Well, and all these courses that we've put out there, again, it's like, it can be the hardest thing you do or the easiest thing to do. It's all how you choose to participate in it, all how you choose to invest in yourself. And if you can't invest in yourself, you get out what you put in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's incredible the level of detail and information that I've gleaned in the last 48 hours in doing this.
Crazy. Yeah.
I know, it's incredible
how fast it goes. This is totally the red pill.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. And like I said, there's no judgment on the others, on other ways of going about, because at the end of the day, excuse my yawn. Oh, it was a yawn. At the end of the day, we all get to the same place. It's just how we get there, right?
Right. It's the path up the mountain.
Yep. And
I'm choosing the gondola. I want to ride.
Well, how many times have we taken the arduous path, right? That,
Right.
goes through bristle and wildlife, like getting, attacked and everything else. And it's like, I'll take the gondola. I'll just, or I'll just fly up myself.
Right. Right.
Right. And the requirements of flying up yourself is being able to transcend all the stuff that's on the ground there, going up. And so, yeah. So it's not that it's bad, it's just different. right? And so you look at those and, we talk about, sometimes it sounds a little tongue in cheek when we talk about all the, rainbows and unicorns and fairies, right? Which we love, by the way.
Right.
But to me, you see the rainbows and unicorns and fairies a whole lot more clearly and authentically when you get through all the other stuff on the ground. And unfortunately, we love the distraction of them because they're easy. They feel easier. And, it's like having, it's like having Lucky Charms instead of Cheerios. I'm just saying.
But then if all you do is eat all the marshmallows out, then you're left with something that's worse than the Cheerios.
I know. So
I have no experience with that.
I had a whole method. That was like the special cereal when I was a kid. Like when every once in a while, my mother would get the Lucky Charms, and it was like, and then I had a whole method on how I would eat that.
Well, you have to make sure that there's one for many.
Yes. And that you have to have marshmallows at the last 2 bites that you eat.
Right, because then that sets up your reward system for the next time you have it.
Exactly. But see, that's what we do. So, okay. So how do we pace that? I mean, you want to look at it like a bowl of cereal, look at a bowl of cereal. Some people would eat all the marshmallows out first and leave all the other stuff later. Some people would eat all the other stuff out first and leave all the marshmallows for last. And some would eat marshmallow and, regular marshmallow and regular. It's all up to you. And some wouldn't even eat the cereal at all.
What about just eating the marshmallows and throwing the rest away?
Right.
That is an option.
Never even occurred to me to do that.
See, and that never would have occurred to me either, because that would be wasteful. Can't
Right.
have.
Right. That brings in another element altogether.
Right.
Sandra, good morning, Sandra, said, I was asked to share my most memorable moment in teaching. I gotta put my phone closer. The memory was of teaching an 8-year-old boy to walk. It was really just convincing him that he could. But the cool thing was I convinced him to walk by saying he could go anywhere in the building. And when he did the next day, he was so joyful that it was contagious to the entire building.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's a matter of that's what I always talk. I talk about this a lot of times in the session work that I've done over the years. Some of the most powerful parts of the things I've done is given people permission to do what they already could do.
Right. Right. Well, and I was thinking about something very similar to this morning, and when I was raising my my now adult son, he was so resistant to change, and I was thinking about this morning because I feel like to a certain level everybody is, and I was looking at those aspects that I was holding, and I truly believe that it is because I believe the change can't be better than where I am. Because otherwise, why would I not just jump at that?
Right.
Why would I not want to be better? Or not even be better, but to be more comfortable?
Well, and a lot of times what we do as well is we, underneath the surface, because I've been looking at the trust stuff a lot, right? Don't really trust that we are, like, we think we want to think and we want to know that we're capable of doing more, but then there's a part of us that doesn't trust that. And then we're afraid to show ourselves that we aren't, and then feel like a failure. And then our worthiness takes a deep dive kind of thing, right? And instead of looking at it as a shift in direction or a learning experience, we look at it as failure. And then the ego just wants to shut down. Oh, there's another yawn. And so, and like I said, and some of the most incredible things I've seen people do through the sessions I've done over the last decade has been when I've just given them permission to do what they already knew they could do.
Right. Right.
Because it was almost like they needed somebody else to have that faith in them that they, were trying to have in themselves.
Or provide them with that new perspective, as in, it could be better than where you are.
Right.
Just like Sandra and the little boy, it's like, yeah, staying where you are is safe and comfortable, but what if you could go anywhere?
Yeah. Where would you go? Right. And that's part of the vision board class too, is taking that feeling and pushing it
Right.
so that, yeah. So Sandra said yes, and it spread so far. Yeah. So that's the whole thing. And that's the feeling and knowing it, right? That's the other part of creation that we tend to forget that we're talking about in the vision board creation, the Wonder Vision Board class. It's which can still start, by the way. It's not it's not necessarily time dependent. It's just that we're doing lives this first roundabout, this month, once a week, but then all the rest of the course is available whenever you'd like to start, because everybody's got their own timeline for things, and that's great and fine. But that was a little shameless plug for today.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's creating past our noses, right? Creating past, first of all, it's taking a review of the past so we could take an honest look at it and then put it to bed instead of carrying forth little tendrils that we don't look at and then, burden ourselves. That was, it was a dream I had last night about that. Come to think of it, that just hit me, and I was just so grossed out when I woke up, like, oh, get off of me. It was like that kind of stuff. So, and then we, looking at the present, creating what, from a different place, and doing that is really shifting 5,000 things underneath the surface. Because honestly, again, it goes back to being the express lane, which you can
Right.
take, and not everybody likes it, and not everybody chooses it, and that's all fine.
Right.
But, that has been the most challenging part of expressing myself in what I do, because most don't understand. If I said something like, basically my commitment is to help you live your best life, right? That sounds really froofy. It sounds really optional and polished, right?
Right.
And it's really nitty gritty and down to earth and down to the cracks and crevices that you don't really want to look at. And I think that's maybe where the disconnect sometimes comes.
Right. Right. Well, and it's, I provide you the opportunity. I can't do it for you.
Right. I hold your hand. Absolutely. Support you all the way. Because you know what? I hold my own hand. I commit myself to that. And so when I'm committed to that, I'm committed to helping you with that. So, but most of us, because we are so used to just putting one Band-Aid on top of another, it's not something that we typically understand is necessary to really move forward. We just think, okay, what other Band-Aids can I put on so that I can just continue on, right? Think about that. It's like,
And that I just want to feel better.
right.
Which means that I'm not constantly in fear. I'm not anxious. And it's not that you want it to totally go away. You just want it to be just under. So it's still bearable, tolerable.
But you still have the story and the drama to
Right.
Like I think about what comes to mind when you say that is when my kids were younger, they took gymnastics for a while and they just took it for fun. They didn't take it because they wanted to compete. Like everything these days, people, they put their kids in, it's like they have to want to be on competition level, whatever.
Right. Everything's about a team.
Right. And we were like in martial arts, and they wanted to just take some gymnastics just for fun. And it was just nuts because I can't even remember how old they were, probably 9 and 7, right? And so a couple of times, I think they took it for like a year. And I remember, my husband and I would switch off as to who would take who to class, and sitting there on the bleachers. And I would just hear stuff that the parents would talk about competing and this and this and this. And then, because they had more than, there was a big gym, so they had a lot of different things going on. And I remember there was this like girl, she was maybe 12 years old, and her elbow was like all wrapped up, her arm, most of it was wrapped up, and she's practicing. And she took a break, and she went over and she's taking a drink, and her mother said, well, how are you feeling? And she goes, well, it hurts a lot. And she says, oh, just push yourself through because you have competition coming up. And I'm thinking, that's what we do.
Right.
Like, and when you say that, about what we tend to do is that's what we do, is we wrap it up You know, can you bear it? Can I bear it? And then we teach
Right.
that to our kids. Suck it up. I did it to mine. Suck it up and move on. Because that's where I was
Right.
at the
Right.
right.
Right. I mean, I was world's worst. I mean, my youngest daughter did not miss one day of school from kindergarten to through graduation of high school. Not one day sick. And it was like, oh, you know, just push through it and then you can rest when you get home and all this kind of stuff. And I felt like the worst parent at the end because she expected some kind of,
Award for that. Yeah.
yeah, some kind of at least acknowledgement for showing up every day. And here, all I did was teach her that she wasn't worthy of the rest that her body was telling her that she needed.
I know. And we look at that kind of stuff in retrospect over our shoulders and go,
Right.
oh, really? You know, oh, really? I meant so well. Right.
Right. Right.
And it's funny you said that because my kids for a long time, they had that. And then it was funny because at some point in high school, like, well, all right. So when they were in high school was when I started doing this, or middle school is when I started doing this. All right. And I remember when they got into high school, at that point, I did stop myself. I started to stop myself. And then I said, you know what? In life, you don't get any kind of reward for being like having perfect attendance. You know?
Right. Well, you don't in school either.
No, that was, and that's, well, actually our kids' school had like those. They would get rewards at the end of the year for like, or acknowledgements for, you know, not missing a day, you know, like perfect attendance or whatever, which you're going, okay, in the big picture of life, what does that do for you? Nothing.
Well, she has worked it into where now she doesn't take sick days for work and she gets to have them off anyway. So she combines it with her vacation and gets more time off.
Right.
So it did teach her to do that.
Yeah. But, you know, the thing is that we, you know, like what happens when we change to a place where we're just present with ourselves all the time?
Right.
What if we just show up for ourselves all the time instead? And what does that really look like? You know, that takes many layers of stuff. So yeah, this is like psychology, consciousness, you know, rainbows and unicorns all tied together, but it's got so much shadow stuff underneath it.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about in terms of like what we hide from ourselves, what we judge, well, we hide it because we judge it, or we hold it as some kind of value to our identity. And so part of it is being, number one is coming to a place of, you know, where do you start? That's the question, right? And it's overwhelming. And I get that it's overwhelming. That's why we're doing this vision board course. Like I said, it's a little bigger than the bread box that I thought it would be. But
Right. But that just shows, you know, how productive the potential of the productivity of it is incredible.
absolutely. So I mean, that's a great place to start. Start someplace, you know, take one of the Wonderland courses, just take one of them,
Right.
you know. And I look back and it's funny because in terms of trust and guidance, like that you and I just dumped out those courses.
Right.
And we realize after the fact how powerful they are after the fact, and how much we questioned it along the way, going,
Yep.
is this worth it? Da, 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 da. And then we go back and we do the courses. Participants were like, oh my God. Whoa. But anyway, not to toot our own horn, but yeah, to toot our own horn. But really it's the recognition of, you don't have to start in one spot. You can start any place.
Right.
Just pick something.
Just start.
Just commit to something different today. Commit to something in your self-presence today, something in your self nourishment, in your self-love, something to a place of truly honoring yourself. And truly honoring yourself is also including being honest with yourself.
Right. And honoring yourself for where you are.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't find the value in where they are. So
Yeah.
how can they possibly move forward from that place because they're staying in that constant state of judgment of where they are? And if
Yeah.
you come to that place of gratitude for where you are, even from the perspective of, holy shit, I survived. And I'm
Yep.
grateful for that because I live to fight another day.
Yep.
And how am I going to fight different today? How am I going to love different today?
Yeah. And some people, the choice is to up and leave everything, right? And sometimes that's the best way for them to do it. And they know it in expanded consciousness sense that that's the way to do it. And it's not that they just let go of everything, because usually what I see happening with them is that they leave everything, they start fresh so they could build a new foundation, and then they go back. They will eventually go back and resolve the other stuff that was usually in one way.
Otherwise, they would have just simply recreated it in a new place.
Right. Right. And that's just their method. So again, every method is perfect, but for those who are asking where to start someplace.
Right.
So say, I'm going to try this differently. I'm going to have an open heart to the possibilities and allow it to be different. Right. And so that will be, I guess, our clearing for today is I commit to myself. I commit to my own journey, to my own consciousness, to my own resolution, first and foremost, priority. And I leave my heart open to all possibility to sit with that and be present with it and to allow it with love and ease and fun and however you want to package it up. And peace. That feels good.
That does. I like that.
All right. So everyone close your eyes, take a deep breath as we step out of separation into wholeness and oneness. And we set ourselves at the vibration where that is our truth. That is from where we create, exist, and experience. All right. Yeah. I need a nap in that.
No kidding.
That just sort of rippled a whole bunch of stuff like, oh, yeah.
Started with like looking at out a window and it was dirty, you know, and I would clean the glass and it was like, oh, that's better. And then I'd look out the window a little bit longer and it's like, no, it's still dirty. And I would clean it again and clean it. And finally I came to the place where it's like, wait a minute. The problem's in the glass. It's like, you know, seeded glass or old, you know, old fashioned glass where it's not really clear. So then it's like you get the regular glass and then it's like, something's still not right. So then you take the whole glass away and that's when you get that full experience of, you know, the breeze and the smells and the sun and all of that and how it's that process of stripping that away, getting to that place where you get that full experience. That was awesome.
Nice. Nice. Well, and really the most challenging thing for us is to recognize that self-nourishment, that self-centralness is truly our top priority.
And that's that new beginning.
Yeah. And it's funny, haha, like ironic funny, that it is the one thing that we say is the most is the lowest, or the thing that you should not be doing, like one of the most vilified things in our existence here, which is that whole, it's not what you think it is. It's like opposite world, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it is really, yeah. Well, I felt a lot better. God, it feels a lot better now than it did all weekend. So I'm just saying.
Awesome.
But all right. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed the conversation today.
Yes.
Just feel much more pure to where we started on doing this. So, you know. So yeah, do that this week. Do something, you know, make it your priority, and don't just say it as a priority as your, you know, froofy, like I'm going to write this down with affirmations. Not that affirmations are bad, because they do help, but it's like, that's not just enough. It's to really make that your priority. Like, what does that look like in your life? To really, because at the end of the day, it really truly is, like we said, it is all about me, right? My whole life is all about me, just like your whole life is all about you. So
Right.
Why do we pretend it's not? Like, we put so much into forcing ourselves to not allowing that, and to not accepting that, and to not admitting to it, that we like vilify ourselves when we turn that back around. So that's where we can start this week. And you can also start with our Wonder Vision Board class if you would like.
One of the 7 Essence class.
Or one of the 7 Essences classes in the Wonderland program. So, which are all great, and we're all there with you, holding your hand every step of the way. But
Right.
as we say, you're the one who needs to do it. You know, we're here to help you because we're committed to doing that for ourselves, and we're doing it with you so that you can do it yourself if you choose. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Awesome.
thank you for joining. We will see you next time. If I can turn my mouse back on. Yep, there we go. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
signing off with this week's Ascended World. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.